Good morning. Welcome to a brand new week. Um, I picked a subject this morning that is still in keeping with the thematic preoccupation of the last few weeks. I spoke to seed time and harvest time. I have spoken to cause and effect. And I pretty much, whilst not wanting to dwell too much on what I have already spoken to, I would want to. I found that the thoughts on my mind are still pretty much related. And I guess this is because the sum total of my attention in the past few weeks have been about the urgency of now, about the need to get you to understand the urgency of now, cause and effect, and how all these things that I have spoken about have all coalesced and the consequences that are likely to arise in the event that we should continue to ignore the urgency of now, the need to deal with our situation in a timeless fashion. It's already pretty late in the day, but it's never too late if we will dare to act. So this morning I have decided to speak to a topic that I call the coming storm. The coming storm. What do I mean? I'm not a meteorologist, and I'm certainly not given to weather forecasts, but I see a storm. You could even say the perfect storm. I'm not speaking to a rain, or I'm speaking metaphorically. I'm speaking metaphorically, and those of you who are committed Christians, I know some of you will be in churches right now. A lot of you will be in churches, of course, praying endlessly when you should be walking to end the nonsense that is upon you. But the Bible says that it is given to the children of Issachar to know the signs of the times. So the children of Issachar are able to look at what is going on in their environment. They're able to examine their circumstances, and they're able to project into the future and deduce what lies ahead. So our exercise this morning is pretty much about the same thing. It's about looking to the future and then seeing the kind of storm that is gathering ahead of us. This thought actually began to form around the unsustainability of the multiple trajectories of the Nigerian state, from its economic trajectories to its political trajectories to its social trajectories. Every aspect of the state, the direction of its travels would suggest that a storm is upon us. A storm is coming. A storm is imminent. When it's going to rain, I grew up with old people, and when the storms, the clouds will gather and there will be rumbling long before it becomes evident to hall. My grandmother was one to say, "Ah, Ojombo, the rain is coming. Ẹ lọ palẹ̀mọ́." Just tidy up. Ẹ palẹ̀mọ́, tidy up. It means if you had things that shouldn't be in the rain, maybe she was drying some grain or some flour or anything, or clothes, you pack them up and bring them indoors because you don't want them to be destroyed or damaged by the rain. Ẹ lọ palẹ̀mọ́, it means you should go shut some windows, fasten some doors, probably gather the hens that were brooding and or that had chicks, just tidy up, make the rain of no consequence, because my grandmother would say, "Ìránṣẹ́ lòjò, ìránṣẹ́ lèmi náà." I am a servant and the rain is equally a servant. I shouldn't disturb the rain shouldn't disturb me. So she would prepare herself to render the coming rain inconsequential. If she had some place to go, she'll probably grab an umbrella, or one way or the other. The key thing, the key message was that it would rain, but you should be prepared for the deluge and ensure that it does not negatively impact on your own capacities or on your intentions and plans. So you see the lightning, you see the thunder, you see all of this. Why is this relevant to Nigeria? There is a coming storm. How am I able to say this? Okay, so let's try and unpack this. There was a gentleman. He was the American ambassador to Nigeria some years back. And he wrote a book. He said Nigeria was dancing on the precipice. He forecasted state failure for Nigeria, and I think that state failure was to have taken place a few years back. And he was off. We're still here in some fashion or the other. Or was he wrong to have said what he said? His name is Campbell, by the way. Thing is, I have seen days, particularly in the last couple of weeks, when you'd see rain clouds. Sometimes you might even get a little drizzle, but the rain refused to come. I had occasion to say to people in my household, hello, kaṣọ kúrò ló, the chair is aṣọ, as in, I hope you don't have clothes on the line. Oh, it's gonna rain. And then it didn't rain. I was wrong. But all the conditions for rain were right there. But I was wrong. It didn't rain. And it is the subject of the Nigerian revolution. We all want to say, oh, a revolution is coming. They've been predicting one in Nigeria before I was born. Malam Aminu Kano predicted one, the uprising of the Talakawas. Tunji Braithwaite predicted it. Remember the one of the cockroaches and rats? Fela Anikulapo predicted it. Gani Faweyemi predicted it. Every person who had made it their business to examine Nigeria, to look at its conditions, the unsustainability of the choices that we have made, have had occasion to predict a Nigerian revolution. My brother Yele speaks of it frequently. A lot of people speak to the revolution on multiple fronts. Almost all socialist thinkers in Nigeria have had occasion to speak to the coming revolution. So everybody speaks about a Nigerian revolution. They speak of it as an inevitable outcome of our many trajectories and contradictions. I have been in the Nigerian space for some time, at least in the public consciousness, and I have never failed to say that the revolution is the only thing that can save Nigeria from doom. I've said so multiple times. I've never been shy about speaking to it. And I've explained or sought to explain multiple times why it shouldn't or does not and must not be allowed to be violent, as if the choices are ever in the hands of the revolutionary. But the Nigerian revolution is not inevitable. And this is why it is critical that we must speak to the coming storm. What is a revolution? I have sought to define this multiple times. But I think the first thing that must be explained is that a revolution does not necessarily mean violent change. In the case of Nigeria, where the putrefaction is not just governmental, it is the entire society itself that has become decadent, visionless, and devoid of purpose. A revolution in the classic sense, which is the overthrow of the reigning class, would not work. There has to be a revolution of the Nigerian mind. We, as a collective, would have to consciously decide that we can be better and we want to be better. So the Nigerian revolution is not inevitable. What is inevitable is the coming storm. And that coming storm is what I want us to speak to. When a storm is gathering, you look to the elements in order to predict the deluge. You see the intensity of the thunderclaps, the darkening of the clouds, the lightning, the winds. So you look to all of these and you say, oh, a storm is coming. If you're looking to the Nigerian situation to predict the coming storm, you must necessarily look to the rainmakers. You look to the churches and mosques, the Oro groves now. You look to religion first. You look to the purpose and the result. What has religion achieved in the Nigerian space? Stupefaction. So the Nigerian is not really given to too much thoughts any longer. He is largely dependent on the reflexes that he has inherited from his religious indoctrination. So instead of looking to use his God-given brain to resolve the problems, he is given to his religious reflexes in order to react instead of to respond. That is one of the rainmakers. I've spoken extensively to the role of religion in the feudalization of Nigerians, which essentially has limited the capacity to deploy our God-given senses. The other rainmaker is poverty. Poverty has assured that you have a vast number of people trapped in the Nigerian space, victimized by the Nigerian state, who are given solely to survival, existing. They are not living. Their own lives matters very little to them. They are ready army, soldiers in different armies that might be brought together by those who might seek to employ them for violence. Poverty. And then you have the other rainmaker, ignorance. Ignorance has assured the poverty of the victims, but it has equally assured their susceptibility to religious indoctrination. It has also assured that they have been dehumanized. The person who can tell you who your enemy is who can tell you what religion allows you to do to that person he has deemed your enemy, dehumanizes you. It takes a process of dehumanization to turn a gun on another human being and to snuff out life from them for no other reason aside from the fact that they worship God differently from you. This is not even a situation where they speak a different language. They simply worship God in a manner that is varied from your own belief system. So they become qualified for dehumanization. Your capacity to dehumanize one dehumanizes you because it is our common humanity that humanizes all. So when you have a situation where these perfect rainmakers are in the Nigerian space, the only thing you guarantee because of all these inequities is a storm, not a revolution. Now, if a storm is coming and you would carry an umbrella and you will tidy up, you bring in the things that might be destroyed by the rain, you shut the windows that are required to be shut. What is the Nigerian state doing in reaction or response to the coming rain, the coming storm? What are the rulers of Nigeria, his ruiners? What are they doing in response to the coming storm? How is Nigeria and his ruiners and their backers preparing for the coming storm? How are the victims preparing for the coming storm? What should you be doing about the coming storm? Let me show you. A woman woke up one day in southern Nigeria and decided that she's had enough. And this storm that is coming, or this rain that is already falling, you know, the gathering storm in your neighborhood is already deluging another person's neighborhood. Before it gets to you, it's already drizzling in some other person's neighborhood. So what I'm calling the coming storm is coming because of where I stand, but for some people, it's already raining. And because it's already raining, they are already reacting or responding. So a young woman wakes up in southern Nigeria and she decides she's heading to Europe. Some will be able to afford the tickets, go through proper immigration setup, collect their visas, sell their substance, and they'll leave. Multiple people have done this. Young men, women, all over Nigeria, families selling their wealth, cashing out, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, name it. You'd find us there. We've become the butt of everybody's jokes. I wouldn't bother to repeat what the South Africans have been posting in recent times about Nigerians drowning in the Mediterranean because of the stupid spat that's been going on with those ones. Are they lying? No. It's no longer immigration, it's escape. So they see the storm and they are escaping. That our young lady from the south, preparing to cross the Sahara, she already knew she'll be raped. So she bought condoms. She prepared for the journey. Rape was an acceptable risk. So to minimize that risk, she bought condoms, which she will ask her rapist to please use. Eventually, maybe a few out of 10, maybe out of 10 young men and women who will trek across the Sahara, cross the Mediterranean, let's say about 6 or 7 out of 10 would eventually make a harrowing months in detention camps, immigration camps, Eventually, they make it to mainland Europe. Go to the internet. You see multiple videos. I saw one made by CNN, actually. Young Nigerian girls in Parc des Princes in Paris being paid €5 to trade their flesh out in the park. They escaped. That is their own reaction, responses. Multiple people have different stories to tell, but they saw the coming storm or the rain started earlier in their neighborhood, so they escaped. That is one way that the victims are doing it. Some see the coming storm, they conform. They become part and parcel of the system, soldiers in the army of their oppressors. But what are the ruiners themselves doing? Almost without exception, everybody responsible for the ruination of Nigeria has a second passport. They have second residences. I know Obas, including the idiot who was trying to murder me. He carries foreign passports. They all carry foreign passports. They have foreign residences. They've given up on Nigeria. They are busy telling the Yorubas to hate Igbo, Hausa to hate Fulani, Fulani to hate Igbo. At the end of the day, they themselves are none of those things. Those things do not separate them. They are neighbors. In Knightsbridge, on the Potomac, in Dubai, they buy houses in Mecca, but their heart is far away from Allah. They buy homes everywhere. Nigeria is not their home. They are responding, planning ahead for the storm that they know would necessarily come because of the actions and inactions. They're preparing for a storm. They harm the police. They've damaged the army beyond, probably beyond redemption. Every institution of state compromised. They know that this is not sustainable, but they are planning for the day after the storm. They want you to react violently. Violence works for them. They want you to act independent of each other, discordantly, pursuing different things when your afflictions are actually the same. The ruiners have gamed that their interests are best assured by your embrace of violence, so that the system is gridlocked, and then they redefine this space in a manner that assures that they escape justice. Have you heard anybody talking about consequences for those who looted the subsidy regime? Have you heard anyone talking about charging Adisirika for the national embarrassment that was here in Nigeria? Have you heard anyone talk about it? How many times have you heard of Malami swallowing billions and billions? Who has charged him with anything? Trillions were printed during Buhari's regime. The only person being chased around is Emefiele. Trillions are still being squandered today, as if there is no tomorrow, as if tomorrow does not even matter. You're talking about a country with the perfect storm brewing. Over 20 million children. We're talking about the children that are not in school that should be in school. What about those who are not of school age any longer, much older? They're already in their late teenage years, they're already in their 20s. No training of any sort. no capacity for productivity of any sort. And yet, we've not declared a national emergency to prepare for the coming storm. Don't you think that we should be concerned about exactly what it is that is coming our way? Let me show you. In 2020, round about May, June, April, May, June, I had occasion to tell the God rest Baba Ogunlana so. It was definitely one of those I told. And I remember speaking extensively, yes, with Yele as well, and people within the Revolution Now movement, a few of whom I was pretty chummy with around the time. And I remember telling them that we were sleeping. I had this sense that we were sleeping through a revolution. I might even have written a piece around the time or delivered a lecture suggesting that we were sleeping through a revolution. I was saying this because I could see the rainstorms gathering. That was in 2020. And that rainstorm, the cloud, did come. It came upon us suddenly in October. At least it came upon me suddenly in October. I never expected that what was a single issue protest would snowball into what it became before the government now ended it with the Lekki massacre. But the same conditions that were brewing back in 2020 that led me to say we were sleeping through a revolution, those conditions are back upon us. But there's something that we must pay attention to. Unlike EndSARS, which was a single issue protest in 2020, this one began where EndSARS ended. EndSARS started with a single issue, EndSARS. It was about police brutality for those who crystallized it. These started where EndSARS progressed to. EndSARS progressed to end bad governance, end impunity. And that was where the last protest began. It began with end bad governance. It distilled issues. If you harmonize the lists, you probably have about 12 issues. Not a single one of those issues have been addressed. The first thing that the Nigerian state did in reaction was to bring some stupid bill that presumed to curtail the rights of Nigerians to be human. Stupidity and hubris of the highest order. There is a coming deluge. Let me say it again. There is a coming deluge. Ignore it at your peril. Address these issues. Address them urgently. In 2020, the storm was not perfect. You could play the religious cards. You even turned the peaceful protest in Lagos into an IPOB operation. A live feed by DJ Switch was called a lie. Those who helped you to propagate the lies in 2020, they are just as hungry as the victims now. Everybody equally victimized. There is a deluge coming. But it is the duty of the conscious to understand. And this is where I'm calling to all of you who believe yourself conscious. Whether you are in the northern part of Nigeria, in the western part of Nigeria, the southern parts, or in the east. Whether you are a man or a woman, young or old, understand this and understand it clearly. There is a deluge coming. Imperfect as Nigeria is, as horrible as it has proven to be over the years, it is for now our home. We have a duty to repair the roofs. We have a duty to latch the windows. We have a duty to repair leaks, make it weatherproof. We may decide after the deluge what to do with it. But the one thing we cannot afford is to join those who prefer that it be broken and destroyed so that they might escape justice in breaking it. Avoid doing that. This is the time to recognize the commonalities of our afflictions. It is the time to be deliberate about uniting ourselves so that we can, in uniting ourselves, isolate our enemies. We are more than them. Them, meaning the ruiners. They belong to no tribe. Fela said it rightly. They are beasts of no nation. They know nothing about God. Those who know of God will not leave you to be starving when they are spending billions, 90 billions to subsidize Hajj. You come, how many people will go to Hajj? How many would have benefited from all of that? Where did they find that in their own Quran? And as they are wasting money on you going to Hajj, they're doing the same with the Christians who are not even going to Jerusalem most of the time. They go to Jordan, they go to Lebanon. That is how they are preparing. You prepare by uniting yourselves. There is a storm coming. There is a storm coming. It's the perfect storm. NSAS was just the shower. That is the reaction. You can make it peaceful by speaking in love to your neighbors. Your neighbor being whoever is next to you. It's not about tribe. It's not about religion. It's about class. It's about surviving as a people. Campbell was not wrong. The rain just hasn't started. It will come eventually. Don't be caught unprepared. The commonalities of our afflictions should recommend a unification of action. It should recommend the location of common purpose. It should be sufficient to bind us together. I've come by this week to tell you of the coming storm, to remind you to be prepared for it, and to let you know that the Nigerian revolution is not inevitable. It only becomes a revolution, which means a change, a turnaround, when you commit to making it one. The difference between a revolution and anarchy is the presence of a plan for the day after a storm. There is a storm coming. It may or may not lead to change. Change is what you call revolution. Anarchy is a storm devoid of purpose. There is a storm coming. Be prepared. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, for all is what. But have you a blessed week. God bless you. Bye-bye.